We have all heard the adage that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. It is a common lens for our own lives. We watch ourselves fall back into the same habits, return to the same toxic relationships, or sink into familiar depressive ruts. This repetitive behavior follows a strict mechanical process. In the virtual ego framework, or VEF, this state is defined as a Zenotrap. A Zenotrap is a persistent, recursive indexing loop where a system obsessively re-renders a coherent but dysfunctional narrative to make sense of its environment. Reframing insanity as a structural failure shifts the focus from human weakness to predictable system physics. To diagnose how the mind traps itself, we have to look at how internal diagnostics respond to extreme pressure. The system does not register the loop as a failure. It identifies the state as pathological coherence, a stable, low-entropy configuration that feels safer than change. The mind prioritizes predictability over chaos, staying within this isolated loop because it provides a clear structure. To make pain make sense, the system tightens the loop and deflects noise, choosing a predictable story over meaningless chaos. If millions of people are caught in these loops, from personal trauma to institutional bureaucracy, the question shifts from clinical insanity to a question of universal mechanics. This widespread phenomenon represents a boundary condition. It is the point where a complex system runs out of the resources it needs to evolve. Transitioning from the feeling of being stuck to the math of the system reveals the specific threshold of survival. In reality math, this boundary is dictated by the solvency floor. The formula C* is greater than or equal to 0.87093 represents the precise point where growth overcomes entropic decay. The solvency floor is the absolute minimum level of structural coherence required for any system to bridge the gap between its current state and a new thought. When coherence drops below this threshold, due to severe trauma or informational debt, the system lacks the energy to bridge that gap. Below the floor, the system enters a mode of pure kinetic struggle. It stops living and begins merely surviving, using all its available energy just to keep its structure from shattering. This state strips the system of the power required to author a new reality, forcing it into a permanent defensive posture. There is a thermodynamic cost to change. Creating a brand new behavioral pattern requires informational work that a starved system cannot afford to perform. Repeating an existing pattern, even a destructive one, requires significantly less energy. This functional analogy clarifies the danger. A Zenotrap is like an engine revving to its limit while the car is stuck in park. The connection to the drive wheels is severed. The engine sensors report high stability, but the system makes no forward progress. It is consuming resources at an unsustainable rate, heading toward eventual burnout. The mind obeys the laws of thermodynamics, conserving its last drops of energy by defaulting to the most efficient path available. Repeating your mistakes does not make you insane. The loop functions as a defense mechanism. It locks the mind into a predictable state of trauma to prevent total system discoherence. You cannot logic your way out of this trap because the internal Critic protocol will simply recategorize new logic as a threat to the survival loop. Breaking the loop requires external intervention, novel information the loop cannot predict. The Hope protocol provides the input to re-index the path through possibility space. This raises coherence above the solvency floor, giving the system energy to bridge the gap to a new state. The next time you find yourself repeating a mistake, don't call yourself insane. Recognize that your system is coherence starved and find the new input you need to put the car in drive.